So I look after one of the other regulatory areas within the JSE. It's called issuer regulation. And what we basically do is we essentially set the regulation applicable to listed companies and to directors of those companies. So we essentially look after the rule book in relation to the listing requirements. And that's where you probably would have seen over the last couple of years, there's been lots of activity. Because we're the custodian of those listing requirements, we need to make those requirements, we need to update them as and when it's relevant. There's been lots of activity on our part, specifically over the last couple of years. There's been probably the most reforms that we've introduced to the listing requirements that we've seen in the last 20 years. And maybe I'll get to it later, but maybe it's worth just pausing there and just highlighting some of those that we've gone through recently. And this was, as you would probably know, the whole issue about new listings on the exchange, delistings, has been a topical issue for many years on the JSE, but not just the JSE. I mean, this is not something that's unique to us. If we look at some of our international counterparts, they've seen similar types of trends in terms of lack of new listings and delistings on those exchanges. So certainly not unique to the JSE. But obviously what we've done is we've reflected on that, and there's been a couple of consultation papers that we've published because we've said, if there's a criticism in the market that the framework is perhaps not fit for purpose based on what we're seeing in the market, is what do we need to do from our perspective that's within our control? There's obviously issues outside of our control that we can't do too much about. Issues like the macroeconomic environment, listings activity, and very often delistings are driven by what happens in the economy. The two are basically joined by the hip. But the stuff that's within our control, what can we do? And if you go back to 2021, we published a consultation paper where at that point in time, there was lots of concern in the market about red tape. I think that's what certain CEOs refer to from a listing requirements perspective. And Val touched on it earlier. It's always a very important balance that we need to strike between making sure we've got a set of regulation that provides investor confidence, where we can attract capital not only from local investors, but from international investors, but also not making it too difficult so that there's no incentive for companies to come and list on the exchange. So the cutting red tape at the time, there was some concerns raised in the market. We published a document and we said, these are the matters where we think we can make a difference in terms of updating the listing requirements. And very importantly, we asked the market for input on that as well, so that the product that we delivered was something that was not just done by the JSE in isolation, but with proper input from investors, because they're a very important stakeholder group, issuers, the companies on the exchange, sponsors, and various other advisors in the ecosystem. So that resulted in a set of significant changes we made at the end of 2021. More recently, you probably would have seen we did market segmentation. There was a concern that we've seen lots of delisting, specifically on the smaller end of the market. How do we address that? Does it make sense to have a set of rules for a company that's got a market cap of R1 trillion that's identical to a company with a market cap of, say, 10 million rand? Certainly the conclusion we came to, and based on input from the market, is there needs to be a proper differentiation to make sure that you've got a sort of fit-for-purpose set of regulations for smaller companies. Again, we did a proper survey amongst issuers, investors, and sponsors, and we said, where can we make the difference? Where can we make certain changes that will make sure that the framework for those smaller companies are more fit for purpose? That resulted in the market segmentation, where we segmented the main board into the general segment and the prime segment. Just some stats on that. We've seen 1/3 of all eligible companies that can move to the general segment actually transferred since we introduced this reform at the end of 2024. So from that stats perspective, we think it's been a successful initiative. The important thing is there's an alternative available for those smaller companies. It may not be attractive for everybody, but there is an alternative available where they can apply and then migrate to that segment. That was market segmentation to try and address that particular issue. And then there was obviously the issue that goes back to the cutting red tape initiative in 2021, and that was the complexity of the listing requirements. Again, finding that right balance is difficult at the best of times. But we did say that over the years, over the last sort of 20 years, our listing requirement specifically has developed into a fairly complex set of rules that's been bolted on over the years. You see a gap in the market, or you see someone exploiting a particular issue and you need to update the requirements, and those things become complex over time. So the simplification project was essentially a whole-scale review of the listing requirements, where we simplified it. That was one of the risks after concerns that have been raised. And not that the volume was one of the objectives of the exercise, but just to give you a sense, again, talking about statistics, that the rule book was cut down in half, basically, based on that simplification project. Again, trying to address the issue about complexity, making it easier for companies to comply, but very importantly, making sure that we still have a robust sort of investor protection framework. And in doing that, obviously, there was a significant consultation. It's probably the longest consultation period we've had with any set of changes. It was done over a rolling sort of 18-month period. And that product is now finalized, it's been published, and it's effective now for all companies on the exchange. And then maybe just the last one I'll touch on is obviously making sure, to Val's earlier point, making sure that we remain competitive. You know, companies have a choice. They can decide to list on the JSE, but they equally can also decide to list on the LSE, on NASDAQ, or any other international exchange. So we had to make sure in all these initiatives that our framework remains competitive. So we've introduced issues like fast-track listings. We've got a fairly robust framework around which exchanges we accept. I think, I don't have the exact number, we probably have around about 16 international exchanges that we accept for fast-track secondary listings onto the exchange. And Canal Plus was a prime example quite recently where they've been listed on the LSE and they were able to get access to the JSE on a fast-track basis because we recognize the LSE as an approved exchange. So I just thought while we're on that topic, just to address some of the reforms we've seen over the last sort of 3 to 4 years. There's lots of others that we're busy with. Maybe just to give you a sense on that, just to, again, go to the point about making sure that in looking after the rule book, that it remains fit for purpose. Towards the end of last year, we published 2 further consultation papers. The one was on financial reporting. It's been an issue that when we did market segmentation, when we consulted with the market, one of the messages we got from participants was the cost of financial reporting in some respects is probably the highest cost they've got for being listed on the exchange. And you could argue to say, well, there's good reason for that. That's probably the most important piece of information that investors rely on in making informed decisions. But again, we looked at all the touch points and the requirements to say, is issues like trading statements, as an example, is this still appropriate for our market? Issues like headline earnings per share. It's a public document. It's out there and it's on our website, but happy to share that with you as well. So we asked the market those key questions. Do we need to consider any potential changes in those areas? Again, in the next couple of weeks, we'll publish an announcement. We will give feedback to the market on the outcomes of that and the potential changes that we will embark on to deal with some of those issues. That's just on financial reporting. And then maybe the other one, we don't only look after the equity market, we also look after the debt and specialist securities market on the exchange. There we also published a consultation paper dealing with SENS specifically. I think one of the concerns raised in the market was the number of announcements in that particular market was in some cases perhaps excessive, and it was diluting the value of SENS. So if you overload SENS with lots of information, then you lose the important bits. So there's also a document out on consultation on that specific issue. So again, just some of the reforms that we've been busy with over the last couple of years to address attracting new listings, some of the delistings on the small end of the market, and just making sure that we've got a fit-for-purpose regulatory framework. I've probably covered most of the issues. We spoke about the listing requirements, making sure it remains relevant. We spoke about obviously playing a role or being responsible for approving new listings on the exchange. So there's obviously setting those requirements. But very importantly, once a company is listed, that's not the end of the engagement. There's obviously those SENS announcements that you referred to, Garth, Vernon. And we've just highlighted a couple of those that's important, that deals with ongoing obligations that companies have to make disclosure to the market to allow investors to make informed decisions. Maybe the other one I'll just touch on briefly that is very often a topical issue is obviously enforcement, which is very important for us. The point I'll just make there is that the powers that we have is obviously derived from the Financial Markets Act. So very often there would be an expectation that we must do X, but our powers are limited in terms of what we can do from a Financial Markets Act. So you asked the question earlier, Garth, if a director is found wanting in terms of the requirements, if it's a breach of the listing requirements, clearly we can take enforcement action for that. The powers that we've got, we can obviously do public and private censures, and you probably would have over the last couple of years seen the JSE being far more active in that regard. Public censures obviously being the one that companies and directors try and avoid at all costs. It's obviously it's meant to be a public censure, and they don't like that. There's obviously financial penalties. Very importantly, there is we can't impose penalties exceeding 7.5 million rand. That's prescribed by the Financial Markets Act. Disqualification of directors, a very powerful tool that we've got. We obviously only exercise that power in exceptional cases, and there's been a number of those over the last couple of years. We're based on the conduct of a particular director, the JSE may decide it's so serious that it warrants actually disqualifying them from being a director of a listed company for a period of time. And then obviously suspensions and terminations of listing. If the conduct is so bad, a company refuses to provide disclosure to the market, we can suspend and ultimately terminate that company's listing. And what you often see there coming through is a company for a long period of time fails to produce financial statements that would result in us ultimately terminating the company's listing. So maybe in the interest of time, I'll stop there. Just on that, you'll find on the website, we do publish an enforcement bulletin once a year. The most recent one was published a couple of weeks back, and you can actually see, obviously, you'll only see the details, similar to the point Sean made earlier, you'll only see the details of the public censures, where you'll see names, but other matters where we've provided financial penalties or perhaps private censures, you'll get a sense of what the theme was, what the breach was, but you won't get the specifics of the company's name.